morning, everybody.
Labdien!
Hello, everybody.
Nous sommes vraiment heureux d'être ici, même si nous sortons bientôt. J'espère que vous passiez une bonne journée. Merci de votre attention.
As people from multiple nations have settled in our island through the centuries, Cyprus has become a multicultural and multi-ethnic society where Greek Cypriots, Turkish Cypriots, Armenians, Maronites, Russians, and British live together in harmony.
The European Union, in this time of uncertainty, is facing a lot of problems which require certain and precise answers. Some might say that these problems are none of the youth's business, but they would be forgetting that we are the future. We are the ones that one day will take over the responsibilities from the shoulders of the older generations. We are here today proving that we are ready for that day.
We believe that our multicultural values complement each other and that our diversity is what unites us.
We also believe that these qualities are of importance for European cooperation and to ensure harmony between different countries. This is all the more important in our current situation, as some countries are turning their backs to the idea of working together for the common good. We wish you all an amazing simulation and a nice day in our beautiful city of Strasbourg. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am the first time here in this parliament in this period. I arrived or came 2014, and I knew, of course, a lot of the European Union about the functioning of the parliament, but still it was new, it was interesting, and I must say I enjoy my work.
And I would like to ask what's going to happen to Europe if another big country, like example Germany or France, going to exit the Europe?
In this case, I am optimistic, you will be surprised, because you cannot stop the European idea. This, I think, is in the heart of the people. If another country, even a smaller country, leaves the Union, then I hope it will really give the necessary drive to change the rules of Europe. You know, Europe is, as it is now, it's not very democratic. The European Parliament has not the right normal parliament has. The Commission is a powerful government, if you like. They cannot be even questioned by the Parliament. And in the Council, the politicians of the member states push things through they would never get through in their own countries. So you see from this, the whole situation is somehow odd. We must change the treaties, the European treaties, if we want to have a really well-functioning Europe. And as soon as Europe becomes more democratic, I think also Britain will be on board again. So I urge our people to improve the situation. Perhaps you know, just now, let's say next week, we will vote on a paper how we can improve the situation in Europe with regard to democracy. This paper does not go far enough, cannot, because for doing more you have to change the treaties. But we have to do it. If the idea of Europe wants or should survive, and I think everybody wants it, then we must change the rules of the European Union.
I want to ask in which way Europe wants to act to solve the problem of migration from North Africa and Turkey.
Did I understand it right from the refugee problem? Is it what you mean? With Turkey, it's at the moment very difficult because of Erdogan. And my personal opinion is it would be much better to have big refugee camps near the border of Turkey, where Europe pays so much money that people can live there decently. As I said before, many or most people really do not want to leave these regions in Syria and in that part of the world. They want to stay, and they are urgently needed there. Because I hope the war will not go forever. So when it's finished, the countries need these people. So it's for us, the only solution is in this part of the world to help with refugee camps, and I must say with camps where people can live. If you have seen some camps, it's terrible. A colleague of mine was there, and a mother held her child and said, please take it, the child will die here. Please take it with you, then at least the child can survive. If you see such a situation, you know what these people suffer. With Northern Africa, it's different. As I said before, it does not make sense to strengthen the Coast Guard of Libya and other countries to send these people back to Africa. This will not help them, this will not help us. You have to look for a humanitarian solution, and that is the first priority to improve the situation in the countries where these people come from. I must say, in my home in Munich, my wife has given a room which I usually use to a refugee from Africa, because this lady really had such a terrible situation. She needs to be here, and so why do we fight these people? Why let we die these people? Let them die in the Mediterranean. It's much better to help them in their countries, and it's not that expensive to improve the situation so that the people have a minimum standard of living. Is not so bad. So we can do it, we must do it, and the European Union in some cases does just the opposite. The new fair trade treaties, which are not fair at all, for example with West Africa, say we import everything to them, we destroy the economy there. And then we are surprised that people cannot live there and come to us. Perhaps you remember there was a fisherman in TV. He said, now I have made my way to Europe. You want to send me back because I'm only an economical refugee, I'm not a political one. But what do you do in Europe? You fish everything in our coast. He was a fisherman, and he said, I cannot live anymore from my fishing because European ships take all fishes. There's nothing left. So I think we have to change our rules. And this doesn't cost much. This is possible with a minimum amount of money just to let these people live. I think that's a solution.
I wanted to ask you about your opinion on how should the problem with the lack of efficient green energy programs in poorer countries should be tackled. Thank you.
I think in this respect, we in Europe have to do our homework first. We have installed lots of green energy, wind power, solar power, and so on. We have not yet managed to store this, especially electrical energy. It is possible, the tools are there, it's even done in large scale, but our governments don't like it. I must say this part of energy policy is still in the national competence. And for example, in Germany, we have a double taxing on green energy when it's transformed to methane or something, put into the internal gas net and put out again for car fuel or whatever you like. I should explain it a bit more. The problem with especially wind power, solar power is that we have not always enough wind, we have not always sun, but sometimes we have too much of that. So to keep your net stable, your electrical net, sometimes you have to destroy electrical energy, and we had a strange situation that we paid up to 15 cents per kilowatt hour to consume electricity, or let's say to destroy electricity. Now the situation has improved a bit, but only a bit. And so we have times when you get electricity for almost free, and we have times where you cannot have electricity from wind and sunshine. So you have to keep a coal power station or atomic power station or whatever. And this is the wrong way. We have possibilities to convert the electricity, which is too much, into hydrogen, into methane or something like that. And to store it like that and to use it when we need it. And the capacity is tremendous, which we have in Europe. I know the data from Germany. If the gas net is filled, we can supply all gas need and all electricity for 1.5 months without putting any new gas into the system. So that is more storage capacity than we ever need. We have it. We have to use it, and it would be possible if there was not such a double taxing. So it's the role of the governments, of the national governments, which prevent this possibility.
The topics agreed on in the group of environment and renewable energies include the first one of education, so educating starting a young age, raising awareness among the general public with information campaigns, promoting the health benefits of a reduced meat consumption, the importance of recycling, emphasized among the population, making scholarships in relation to the environment more accessible. Next topic, transport. Public transport should be cheaper and more frequent. Electric buses should be encouraged. People with electric cars should benefit from more charging stations and parking spots. Low emission zones should be implemented in big European cities. Bikes and walking should be enthused, as well as an increase in bike lanes. Next, taxes and subsidies. Big industries should be taxed in their CO2 emissions. This money can be used as subsidies towards countries struggling to develop their renewable energies or poorer European countries. EU funds should also be used in this purpose. Industries using renewable energy should be rewarded with tax exemptions. Plastic should be discouraged by being more expensive to the public, and fossil fuels should be more expensive, as well as a reduction in the price of renewable energies. Last topic, innovation, research and development. Innovation and research should be encouraged with financial aid from the EU as well as individual European governments towards innovative companies aiming to improve current renewable technologies, as well as research in different universities.
Do you want to limit meat consumption in animals too? Or what's the point of it? Thank you.
The point of reducing meat consumption is to reduce the amount of methane gas coming from cows, as well as all the other processes that meat involves. So that would be the aim in reducing meat consumption, if that answers your question.
First of which being that for modern Europe, human rights are essential and define our society. Thus, it is our #1 priority, our absolute first and foremost priority, to uphold and protect them in each and every of our member states. A large part of our discussion were the infamous Charlie Hebdo attacks that took place several years ago. Their consequences and the reasons for which they happened. These attacks were provoked by satire of Prophet Muhammad and were extremely brutal. Despite multiple incidents like them, we have come to the conclusion that fear should not influence our choices and that states should not restrict freedom of speech to protect its civilians from potential backlash. To do the opposite would be to give in to what terrorism is trying to achieve.
The only thing I wanted to ask about the proposal is that he said we're going to educate people in the educational centres as well as home, but do you think it can damage the people's views on some religions, because some parents are quite xenophobic as well as some teachers? How do you think it will be implemented? Thank you.
Yes, the argument you brought up was brought up several times in our discussions. And yes, it's quite an important part of the whole problem. But we ultimately agreed that limiting freedom of speech and freedom of expression in this kind of way would be a start of a downward spiral from which we might not eventually return. And thus, in our opinion, would be better to combat these attacks and these incidents in other ways. If you start limiting what people can say, initially it starts with innocent things like satire, and eventually it can grow into something much, much worse, simply with the excuse of it insults someone or it makes someone feel uncomfortable.
So we had many points of discussion during our debate. Corruption was a major theme of the talks, the way in which the development aid money was actually allocated to the countries. We discussed potentially giving money to volunteers and experts and people in their fields so that they could train the people living there to build their own resources, use their own resources. Like, for example, someone gave this concept of teaching people how to be nurses and doctors so they could look after each other. A lot of the issues with development aid money at the moment is that it's never reaches the actual people it needs to go to due to corruption in governments. And our solution for this is that we send out these experts, we send out people, we might even pay them, but it's better that people know how to do things themselves rather than relying on others.
So I would just like to ask, you said that you would give money directly to organizations and people. So what would be the criteria for getting the money, if you thought about that? Thank you.
With the criteria, we didn't quite get time to talk about this in our discussion, but we kind of briefly touched on it. The fact that the organisations that we'd be giving the money to would have to have a proven track record. The experts that we'd be sending out would also have to be skilled and be able to communicate effectively with the local community. We'd definitely like to, when deciding what organisations to give the money to, ensure that obviously there's no corruption or chance that this money wouldn't be used for in the proper way for what it's intended to be used for.
As we are the future of Europe, we want higher participation of the younger generation. Young Europeans should have the right to vote and express their opinions. Furthermore, everything starts from education. So, EU has to create a lesson or books in which young Europeans will be able to learn about the values which the Union provides, the advantages, and how it operates. It's important to learn about the basic values which the Union is based on, like democracy, equality, peace, freedom, and freedom of expression. Also, we believe in close relations between United EU and its neighbors. By working together, we can combat threats to security, such as terrorism, crime, illegal migration, trafficking, as well as drugs. Furthermore, EU should be one of the leaders of globalization, and it should have a great influence about global decisions. It can work with USA to fight international issues. Also, it can make sure that the products from child workforces or slave labor or underpaid workers will not be part of this new world, as well as products which made without consider environmental issues. Finally, European Union can develop programs about Europeans and can create programs like Erasmus, but in an international level, in order to show to the countries which are not involved in the Union how it works.
We have decided that every European country should accept some immigrants in their country because it is a matter of humanity and of human rights. Those people are fleeing their homeland for reasons such as war, death, fear. We must help them and provide them with aid. It is our duty as the European nation, as a nation who supports human rights and a union who wants to help people and respect their equality and their freedom. They must be helped. They must be given the opportunity to start a new life. So we have also decided that we must increase the funds. We must increase economic funds in order to help the countries that will welcome those refugees to create infrastructures. An idea that we all agreed on is the creation of campuses. Now, in those campuses that will be located in almost every country of the European Union, the refugees will be provided with their basal survival needs, such as nutrition, education for their children, medical support and help, and the grown-ups, the adults, will be culturally educated in order for them to understand and learn about the moral, ethical values of the country that might welcome them.
An ambitious but I think realistic idea was presented. The idea was to create a European Union, a European alliance for apprenticeships called the Technical Entrepreneurship Innovative Youth Development Programme, which would allow young people to acquire transversal skills such as languages. It would also create a better communication and cooperation between member states, because for the moment it's sort of like one country will do what they want, and it's not a unilateral movement. So we want to enforce this. We also decided that it would not be economically beneficial for the EU to reduce the retirement age due to high pensions, and we also wanted to implement exchange programs built between more elderly employees and younger people, so that younger people acquire more experience and skills. Our final idea was to put in place a tax break of 15% for companies that hire over 25% of their employees under the age of 27 years old. The money lost by the government due to these tax breaks would be reimbursed through the European Social Fund. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Nearly all countries have problems with youth employment. So you said you want to build something that from other countries people can work in other European member states. But how will it look for the people in the States if they can't find a job, but people from other countries can find jobs there?
This is not a guarantee of a job. It's the availability, it's an increased availability in jobs across Europe. And if a job is found for these people, then they're allowed to go to these countries and have that job. It's not stealing the job from someone else that might have deserved it just as much as them. Thank you.